All right, this is Chapter 2, Lesson 1, Percent and Estimation. So we're actually going to start in the upper left-hand corner of your page. Sometimes an exact answer is not needed when using percents. One way to blank the percent of a number is to use a fraction. So you can, in that blank, you're going to write estimate. So one way is to estimate the percent of a number is to use a fraction. Another method for estimating the percent of a number is first to find 10% of the number and then multiply. So for example, if you're finding 70%, you find 10% of a number, which is easy because you just move a decimal over, and then multiply that number times 7 for 70%. So you can also estimate percent by percent of numbers when percent is blank than 100 or less than 1. So in that blank, you're going to write greater. So you can also estimate percents of numbers when the percent is greater than 100 or less than 1. You can also find 10% of the number and then multiply. So 120% becomes 12 times 10%. So 120% equals 12 times 10% of the number. So let's take a look at an example here in the middle. It says Jody has paid 62% of the $500 she owes for her loan. Estimate 62% of 500. So 62% is actually really close to 60. So that's where I'm going to take my estimate from. 60% of 500. Well, I can rewrite 60% as either a decimal, 0.60, or as a fraction, 60 over 100, and then simplify it so it equals 3/5. Then I multiply 3 times 500 and divide it by 5. When I do that, I get 300. So 62% of 500 is about 300. Not exactly, but about. It's an estimation. All right, so Marita and 4 of her friends ordered a pizza that cost $14.72. She is responsible for 20% of the bill. How much money will she need to pay? So the first thing I want to do is I want to find 10% of $15. I rounded 14.72 to $15. 14.72 to 15. Nice, easy number. Okay, you want to think easy numbers when you're dealing with estimation. Things that end in 5s and 0s. Easiest numbers to deal with. Okay? So 10% of 15, 10% is 0.1 when we change it to a decimal, times 15 is $1.50. Step 2 is to multiply. So I'm looking for 20%, I found 10%, so I have to multiply my answer times 2. $1.50 times 2 is $3. So Marita should pay about $3 for her pizza. Another problem I have is there are 789 7th grade students at Washington Middle School. About 0.25% of the 7th grade students have traveled overseas. What is the approximate number of 7th grade students that have traveled overseas? Explain. So 0.25% is 1/4 of 1%. Okay, so 1/4 of 1%. So 789 is about 800 students. We can round up. Okay, so I want to figure out 1% of 800. So 1% is 0.01 times 800 equals 8. And I want 1/4 of that. So I take 1/4 of 8 is 2. So 1/4 times 8 equals 2. So about 2 of the 7th graders have traveled overseas. Another one I have is estimate 122% of 50. 122% is about 120%. Right? Again, we're dealing with nice, easy numbers. All right? 120% of 50. So 100% of 50 plus 20% of 50. So 100% of 50 is really like saying 1 times 50, which is 50. Okay? And then I want to take 20%, which I can change to a fraction, 20 over 100, reduced to 1/5. So 1/5 times 50. 1/5 of 50 is about 10. So 50 plus 10 is 60. So 122% of 50 is about 60. So again, we notice that my percent is bigger than 100, which means my answer is also going to be bigger than the number they gave me. We started with 50, so it needs to be more than 50. All right, there are a couple of try-it problems out below. I want you to go ahead, pause the video, try them out, and when you're done, we'll go over the answers together. All right, now that you've had a chance to try out the try-it problems, let's go over the answers together. So the first question I have is Dante plans to put 80% of his paycheck into a savings account and spend the other 20%. His paycheck this week was $295. About how much money will he put into his savings account? So, I want to know how much he's putting into his savings account. So savings account is 80% of his paycheck, and he gets $295. So I'm going to round $295. So $295 is approximately $300. Super close, right? Okay. So then I'm going to take 10% of 300. Okay. So this is 0.1 times 300, which equals 30. Okay. And I want 80% of that, so I need to multiply 30 times 8, which is 240. So he puts about $240 of his paycheck a week into his savings account. A county receives 0.75% of a sales tax. About how much money would the county receive for the sale of a computer that cost $1,020? So the first thing I want to recognize is 3/4% is really 3/4 of 1%. Okay? I want to change 1,020 to 1,000. Okay? So I want to find 1% of 1,000. Okay? Which is really like saying 0.01 times 1,000, which is 10. Okay? And then I want to find 3/4 of 10. So 30 divided by 4. Because 3 times 10 is 30, divided by 4. 4 goes into 30 7 times, with 2 left over. So 7.5. And I'm converting this to a decimal because I'm dealing with money. So $7.50. So the state receives, or the county receives, about $7.50 from a computer that costs over $1,000. And that is the end of lesson 2.